happening, all you beautiful people? Welcome back. We have a special edition Strange Road episode coming your way. I'm your host, Mikey, and as always, riding shotgun, Bub, the bro host. Bub, what is up, dude? How you doing, man?
Doing good. Ready to rock. Been a while.
Absolutely. It has been a while, and we appreciate the hell out of each and every one of you guys for hitting us up, letting us know that that you're out there and you're thinking about us and you're itching for new episodes, and we hear you. We just want to know we hear all of you, especially here recently. Appreciate everybody we've spoke to and has been reaching out. This is an episode that has been, up until this point, kind of hard to process, the passing of our friend, mentor. It's hard to put in words what Jim really was to us, I think. But this is a tribute to Jim Bowsher, our friend, that actually passed away while we were at Bonnaroo together. And we were kind of on our own journey there. And it was very synchronistic that Jim's passing happened while we were out there. What do you think about that, Bub? Pretty strange.
Yeah, it was fairly strange. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's just how we choose to see it, but it feels strange.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It could have happened on a Tuesday when we were both in Columbus and it was rainy, but it was Bonnaroo and it was like, I don't know. It was good. I mean, we'll get into it, but I mean, I think I've processed it enough in a sense of like, Jim wouldn't want me to be sad for him at all. So, I mean,
yeah,
I think he's already thrown a party upstairs.
Yeah, you were kind of saying that while we were at Rue. You said you were it felt like, he was just like, hey man, don't worry about me. You're doing your thing.
I had a whole conversation with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that I was doing it myself, but I was like, almost like, chat GPTing him. AI, not joking. AI, that's what I think I've always done, in certain scenarios, but we just didn't realize it till now. But that's the same thing of like literally like going to chat GPT or any of these AIs and going, give me what this person would think about this scenario. You can do things like that.
Yeah.
With the really good ones. But that's what I kind of did personally. And yeah, what it came back to me from him, if he was still there to say it himself, was you don't have to worry about me.
Yeah.
At all. Like at all. Like
absolutely.
Jim was great. He was good. He was that dude. He didn't matter if he had a boat with a paddle or not. He was always going to be moving. You know what I mean? Like that guy made things happen. So he wasn't reliant on anything else.
No doubt. And before we hop into that, you guys always know where you can find us at The Strange Road, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, wherever you are. And we appreciate everybody still listening, still in YouTube. Definitely has not, the love has not gone away, and we appreciate you guys so much. And there's been a lot of different things all of us have been doing in terms of family and business and gigs. And so it's been, the last month has been awesome to kind of like take a step back, reevaluate things, and know that we love doing this, and it's been awesome. And so we're happy to get back into it. What better way to come back strong with an episode talking about our friend Jim Bowsher tonight. And I wanted to bring up Jim's website because whoever's been managing this website, and they've done a great job. And these guys are pretty...
check that out. Jeez.
Yeah, it really encapsulates Jim.
And this is in the links. We'll put it in the links, right?
Yeah.
So
anybody that's
listening, if you want to check all this out. But
this is jimbowsher.com.
This might be a little visually intensive.
Yeah. But, what was Jim? Let's see. Like it says, folklorist, historian, storyteller.
He's a Renaissance man.
That's
all.
He was a self-taught geologist, archaeologist. He was a writer. He wrote screenplays. He wrote poems. He wrote every single day from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then would go out behind the temple, the main temple, where there's this little swing, and that's where he would write every morning. I mean, you want to talk about dedication to the craft. There's not a day that Jim didn't write I mean, he was so dedicated is not even the word, disciplined, like unbelievably disciplined. Didn't have a
He was
computer,
driven.
didn't have
He
the
had
internet.
something internal. Yeah. He has something
Absolutely.
that you don't rarely you don't see often.
Right.
But
Here's
that's
some,
why too. It's like a magnet.
yeah. And one thing he told me one of the last times I saw him, I think it was when I brought Disborough over there after a gig we had near Wapak in some theater for Songs at the Center. And he got to meet Jim. Disborough got to meet Jim. And one of the things he told us was, remember, he used to always travel, Bub. He used to go all over the place and meet all these people. He
Yep.
said, the last 10 years, I haven't had to go anywhere. People have been coming to me. The
Yeah.
temple, the whole thing. I mean, once it was on Google Maps, it was over. It was on all the
Yeah.
roadside websites back in the day. When I say back in the day, like what, the 2000s?
Yeah. Well, we've known him for a long time.
2010s. Maybe we start there. Bub, maybe you want to tell a story about how we got in contact with Bowsher and how all of that started.
My mom told me about him.
Yeah.
He had done like a presentation for the high school she taught at or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she was like, "This guy is really interesting. You should go just hang out." And I'm like, "That's just so strange. Like, why would I, you randomly give me some 65-year-old dude's information? Like, what am I, or whatever age he was at the time. I mean, he was
Yeah.
definitely in his 60s already, but yeah, but I like people, and I definitely like people that pique my interest. And I mean, if I would have had like one of those reading machines or the meters that like Ghostbusters have when they like first see the ghost in the library, and like the EK or PK meter is just like flashing and walking up and down. That's what happened when you would go to Jim's house.
Yeah.
So I called him and yeah, just told him, "Hey, yeah, I'd like to hang out. My mom said you're a fairly interesting guy, yada, yada. Said probably have a lot to talk about, common interests, whatever." And that was kind of it. And so I really went in low expectations. I don't even think I Googled him.
Yeah.
You just didn't do that back in the day, really.
Yeah. This is 2006, probably.
This
I
is
would
2006. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is 2006.
YouTube had just came out. I remember that. So there wasn't
Yes,
like you
all
could
this-
YouTube Jim Bowsher back then.
No.
Yeah.
That even 10 years later, the
That
video
wasn't
is
even
still
until
stuck that
years
people
later.
put up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so I went over, I drove up to his house in Wapak, and you've been there. When you drive up, it has, ivy growing all over it and these stones. I mean, even out front, like even from the side curb, I don't know if you can pull up Google Earth
Yeah.
or just pull up a Google Maps and you could show the image
totally.
of the street.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Keep going.
But yeah, so, and it's changed over the years a little bit here and there, but basically, big stones, and I'm sure they're stones from something. Like,
Yeah.
if that's
didn't
one
say-
thing, like every stone, I won't say every pebble, but every big stone or larger stone, he could have told you exactly where it's at. So you just follow that angled street.
Yep. Here we go,
Right.
guys.
And that should go down to Wood Street.
I'll go full screen with it.
Um,
Here we go.
yeah, there you go. So it's just, yeah.
So try to
Put
walk
the street
people
there.
through. I know, first of all, you guys should definitely go check out the temple. It is still open to the public, the
That's
backyard. From what we understand, the house is eventually going to be open to the public too, in some sort of museum. Which
I'll tell you
is-
what, I'm going to say this right now. I hope the Smithsonian doesn't get their greedy hands in there and start taking stuff. I'll bet they want stuff. I guarantee they want stuff.
I know they do,
That
because
he
they
had,
offered him.
I know they do.
They've
I know
offered
they-
him serious cheddar for the Spandau prison pass.
Well,
The
he's got more
Spandau-
than that.
Well, that's the one
Wait,
I
what?
know for sure that I've heard
I'm
him
saying
say.
he has like, that's a
want
one-off
more.
original.
And also
That's
the Nazi youth uniform that the guy from Lima gave him that had a bullet hole into it. The guy accidentally shot this Nazi youth, from a distance. All he saw was a Nazi uniform. And
Yeah, he thought it was an adult or full-grown soldier, what have you.
yeah.
It's a child or
And the guy's
that'd
like,
be
I
a
don't know
weird
what to
one.
I don't know what to do with this. So what's he do? He brings it over. You're the only guy that I know that would know what to do with this. And so Jim's like, hey, this is a great story. This is a history lesson. And he takes it into his house of the unknown.
Yeah.
But we can cut to this real quick if you want to kind of explain Jim's property.
Well, I mean, you got to do that street view first. You got to drag and drop the little guy right in front of there.
Yeah. Bam.
There you go.
So we'll go this way, right?
Turn the other way. You got it. There you go.
There's the front of the house. Go this way a little tad bit. There we go. All right, taking you on a tour.
What year is that?
That's
the picture.
It's pretty cleaned up.
Does it say it? It's
this
right underneath.
Has to be pretty old.
Can you not select a different time or year?
I don't think so. This says image captured.
I see. You're looking at you're
November
not.
Of 2021.
Interesting.
Yeah, it does not look like that now. It's really grown with ivy all over the place. But that's kind of the front. But what I was going to say, Bub, is if you wanted to try to explain his
looks
house.
So much different than I recall it from when you walk up to it.
Yeah.
Explain the house in what
Just
way?
How the property is I guess I can do it. It's three lots that go. So all that wooded area you see is Jim's property. And where most yards end, you have a normal backyard. His continues in a straight line all the way back and then widens out as well.
He has a big yard.
Where you can kind of see where the main rock structures and then the central temple is. But all through those wooded areas are all, there's a war memorial back there, which we'll get into. He's been working on kind of getting all these areas plaqued up and where the story is told.
There's a prison door.
Yeah.
There's a barrel cake house. There's a bunch of different garden paths.
Yeah.
It's wild. He has that big memorial with all the bullets in it for each soldier.
Really good shot at the temple. Really great shot.
The temple itself is just amazing enough. Yeah. But that's the crazy part is like, it's not just the temple. Even if people are like, oh, the guy with the temple, you're like, right. But that's like 90% what he's known for.
Mm-hmm.
And probably took, I don't know, 20% of his effort. And the other, that's the other,
took
the other amount of interest he put into writing and just traveling and meeting people and documenting and collecting and
interviewing people.
I mean, his house, again, it is wild. It's the coolest house I've ever been in. I mean, hands down.
Here's what Bub's talking about. This is the collection.
That thing right there with the plate
that
he's standing next to. That is a medical device that you would crank up. He explained this to me one time. You see those two balls in front of it? Those copper balls or brass. I don't know if they're copper or whatever they are.
Yep.
The spheres above the little chambers.
Yep.
They would fire that thing up, and those plates in there, I think, were coated with mercury or something else. And it would basically generate electricity. You'd throw these switches. It would come out to those balls. And then it would shoot down into those jars and then, I don't know, go to the patient. I don't even know what it was meant to do. But he was tickled because he was like, yeah, I've got one of these. He's like, Smithsonian has one. He's like, but they don't have the plates. I was like, so you have a better representation of this device to purity than the Smithsonian does. He's like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I want this. But that was... if you could turn around from Jim's vantage point to looking back in front of that red chair, that's where he had that little coffin.
Mm-hmm.
It was his coffee table, but it was like a little coffin that, man, I really don't want to muck the story up, but I believe it was a protest. It wasn't a real coffin, but it was like a protest coffin that these coal mining kids used to protest because they had lost limbs and it was a very dangerous, deadly job. Where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you going somewhere? What's happening?
You're good, dude. You're good.
He's walking away. He's heading out.
Nobody can see me walk away. That's why I put you up full screen, bud.
But yeah, it's not that long of a story though. But yeah, he has that as his coffee table in his living room. Is this weird little coffin that was used as like a protest. What do I want to say? Not like a prop of sorts.
An effigy. Is that
No, well,
is that kind of the word for
a
it?
representation. Yeah, I
It's
mean,
like
not
a
a
coffin
literal,
in
but
effigy.
symbolic representation
Yeah.
of the struggles of the workers, and the literal representation of some did probably die, I'm sure, and it was
Yeah.
very dangerous. But yeah, everything in that entire room, and then in the entire house itself, pretty much wherever you look. Oh my God!
We'll
Look
bring
at
up
those
some photos here.
inside.
Here we go. 1 second.
Uh,
Here we go.
Look at that first one inside.
This is
That's
outside.
a great room. Yeah, those don't.
There
do it
we go.
justice.
That's the room.
That's a good one.
That's
a real good one.
where the shrunken head is, correct?
No idea.
Where you can see it.
There's I mean, you can see a skull down on the right hand side there already.
Yeah.
There's like that statue of Neptune or Poseidon or whoever that is with the trident. That was always cool.
Yeah.
I think that's where maybe he had the crucifix in there. That was an interesting one. Might have had, he's got like 3 skulls in there. There's 2 under the desk. Jeez, him. Got a lot of skulls, Jim. Kind of a morbid guy there, Ace.
But he would yeah. But he would take people around and just go from piece to piece. I mean, there's no way you could spend. I mean, Bub and I would go there for 7 hours straight.
Like pinball stories, yeah. It just,
and he would pop
what your eye
around.
looked at, he would talk about it.
But he would tell us a lot of the new stuff that would come along, because when we came, hey, you'll never believe what I came across. So you get a lot of that. Yeah. So imagine it's the older stories that he had, because we've kept in contact with him over the years. When we first met him, he told us a lot of those kind of classic older stories, Bowsher stories that you remember. But I mean, I'd say the last several times we've been there, it's always something new that he would have to, impart the story.
I should have wrote him down or something. I should have videotaped him or wrote him down or just sat there and audio recorded it. But, again, technology was not nearly where it is now. Oh, there you go. Go back to that. That's the kitchen.
Okay.
And he's got that big jug of wine in the center of the table. We used to drink from that every now and then. He'd have that cherry wine. Not that Jim drank often. That's why it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
That was basically the only thing we ever drank when we were there. If we had any alcohol with something like that. Not that he minded if you did, but again, his stuff. I think it was cherry wine.
Yeah, it was.
That was really good. His fridge is covered with all kinds of crazy stuff that was cool. There used to be so many cool little postcards and just sayings and buttons and pins and slogans and it's really something special. It's wild to see, kind of looking back at this, because again, we'd sit there and get a coffee ready or something.
Mm-hmm.
That's the room we sat in the most often.
Yeah,
that's the main living room.
That's the mind meld room, is what I always called it.
That's
have
the
a
room.
mind meld.
That is the first room I ever sat in and had a conversation with Jim. And he had that slinky that was a metal shaving from a nuclear bomb from World War II. That was pretty cool. He's like, you know what that is? I was like, no. How could I? And he's like, oh, that's a metal shaving from one of the bombs that they dropped. I was like, how did you get this? Right from the machine at Los Alamos. I'm like, okay. Am I going to be like on a watch list now or something? But yeah,
let's go back to that. What was your initial thought of walking in? Because you probably met him out on the temple, or did you go into his house first and then see the temple?
I met him at the door. Yeah, I met him at the door, and we went through the house. So he took me through his house. So I never walked up his driveway. I just walked up and knocked on the door, and I entered in, and I was basically there, right? Because you walk in, and either you turn to the right, and it was the Trident room.
Yeah.
Poseidon statue. You turn left, and it was the living room with.
That's to the right.
Yeah, so that's to the right.
And this is to the left.
To the left, and straight ahead.
Sorry for those of you listening. We do apologize. These
straight
images
ahead
are
was
on jimbowsher.com.
Just up and slightly right past the Poseidon room, what have you, is the kitchen.
Yep.
Right? So like 2 rooms kind of stacked, staircase, room on the left. And then just past the bookcase on the right there with the portrait above it is that enters into that room,
Yeah.
right? That room is on steroids crazy. Like, there's stuff happening in every
Yeah.
square inch of that, right?
Yeah.
Here's the craziest part. Jim could tell you about each bit of it.
Everything
Routine.
in there, he had the story down pat and would tour
Routinely.
around the country speaking
Yep.
about every item. He had a show that was it was not even just a pilot, it was ready to go for A&E called House of the Unknown, where they had
Yep.
3 episodes in the can, and then the writer's strike happened. They came back, executives tried to mess with the show, and Jim said, "You know what? I don't care about the money. You're messing with the show." And
Dipped out on it.
he let it go. But I mean, the whole world, not that I mean,
Well, that was his favorite part. He used to say all the
Yeah.
time, "They can't do anything with me because I don't care about the money."
yes.
He's like, anybody else that, they'd have to like do the show the way they wanted, or they have to tell the story the way they wanted, or
Yep.
whatever it was. And Jim was like, that's why I can, he goes, it doesn't matter to me. I
Right.
can take it. And it was really funny because, again, if Jim wanted money, I don't think he'd ever have to have sold anything in his house, but he could sell or have sold
Yep.
all kinds of items in that house hand over fist.
Yep.
But again, that wasn't his thing. He was like a black hole of story collection. And
That's a great way to put it.
That's what he really did when he left too, is hopefully he left, the manual to somebody to how to unscramble all of these stories, or has them written down enough, or I mean, that's a monument. That's a bigger task than building that temple 10 times over.
I agree.
He started doing this when he was 13.
Right. Well,
You have
remember
to
the time
assemble
when,
over 6 years worth of writing
yeah,
every day.
right.
Remember that Kevin Spacey as the dude in Seven, where they were like, he wrote these journals for like 5 years or whatever.
Yeah.
It takes so long to read all this. It's like Jim puts him to shame.
Yeah.
He's like, I
Volume.
could pull a notebook and tell you what I was thinking on Tuesday of 1972. He's like, I've written everything. He's like, I can tell you exactly what happened that day, or this or that. I'm like, it's mind boggling. And I used to journal a little bit, and it was fun, but
The
it's like
discipline.
anything else. You got to do it.
It's
If you want to do it every
crazy.
day or every week or you just got to stick to it, but you can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, all of that stuff. I mean, all those bookshelves are just covered, dripping with pieces and ornamentation and all kinds of interesting talking points. And that's what Jim did, and that's how my mom met him. Was he would grab a handful of items if he was speaking at a certain type of convention or assembly or what have you that had a certain motif or style. Then he could come in and he would say, hey, we're going to talk about Civil War, we're going to talk about UFOs, we're going to talk about bank robbers, we're going to talk about whatever it is. He'd bring those items in. And I don't know if you remember the story about him doing that. He did a presentation one time. I don't remember if it was in Van Wert or where it was at, Kentucky. It could have been anywhere in the USA, but I think it was close enough to home. But he had these items, and when he went out to his car, this dude tried to rob him.
Yeah.
Do you remember that story?
Yes.
The guy tries to rob him, and Jim somehow Jedi mind tricks him into selling him his gun. He got the robber to sell his gun to him. Remember that? Jim was like, "Well, you need the money, but you don't want to shoot me or kill me, or why don't you just sell me the gun?" And this guy's like, "What?" And I don't even think it was loaded. So Jim was like, "Yeah, why don't you just sell it to me or something?" He's like, "Then you haven't committed a crime." And however he did it, and he even kept up with that dude. He somehow, again, he had that kind of ability, and that's what I mean by like the Jedi mind trick too. I don't even know if it's a Jedi mind trick. I think he's just operating at a level where most people want to, and he kind of gives them the ability to, and tells them, and why can't you? And really opens up people's mindsets to going, I mean, not everybody can be a Jim Bowsher, but here's the thing.
Yeah.
Work to your strengths, right? I say this to everybody. Like, I'm not going to be a NASA engineer. I'm just not disciplined enough for math or whatever, right? I'm not going to be an Olympic athlete. I just don't have that much talent and that much speed to do anything or jump high enough, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But, Jim, gives you the idea and mindset that it doesn't matter what your talent is, but that needs to be your talent. You know what I mean? Like, recognize your talent. Jim's talent was and always had been being a really great listener and a journalist at heart.
Yeah.
Just a keeper of information, an oral historian.
That's how he
Right?
was able to tell the story so good, is because he had written it all out
In his
and
mind as
had it
well.
all in his mind as well. Exactly. But
It
then
was
also
hard. Like,
journaling it
he
out.
cycled those.
Yeah. And, there's the cultures, Native American cultures all over, where the tribe has their storyteller, their sage, their folklorist. And
Mystic.
in Ohio, that was Jim. I believe that he was, uh, uh, to say an enlightened being, but some form of this enlightened, because he was insatiable for the next connection, the next story. I mean, he never stopped until, I ran into him camping out at St. Mary's campgrounds with Grand Lake St. Mary's State Park campground with my family getting firewood. That's the last time I saw Jim alive. And I couldn't believe it. He's walking out of this house, the guy that I'm just going, hey, anybody around? I'm trying to buy some firewood. Hear this guy with white hair. And I hear him talk. I go, there's no way that's Jim. There's no way. And sure enough, it's him and Walt, his brother. Shout out to Walt. Much love to you. Sorry for your loss, brother. They would have us over for bluegrass night on Thursdays when we were in our 20s. That's when I started going out there. You invited me to that.
And
we
could go play music out there.
Yeah, you would jam. Ben Buddy would come out there and jam on guitar. You guys would sing. All the old timers would just be like blown away by you guys.
They were rocking some good bluegrass, though.
Great.
But we weren't. I didn't know bluegrass or know any bluegrass at the time, I guess. So
yeah,
I could. You know what? Now looking back on it, if I could go back now and play, it would be a lot of fun. But
I mean, there's people we took out to those that changed their life afterwards. And really went, we would bring people out there that were kind of in a difficult spot or just needed some inspiration. Stuck. Good way. That's the effect it had on me. So I figured, hey, why not? You should come out here and
get people unstuck.
And, not going to mention any names, but they're, people that we're close to that literally the next day and the next week completely turned around and changed their life. And took a major risk that now looking back was the biggest payoff moment of their life in terms of
smartest thing they ever did.
100%.
Well, that's what most people do, is they deny those real, like, they talk themselves out of things. We get used to what we get used to. Even if we are used to it, it feels like we're dying a little bit daily. That seems more comforting than to go, I'm going to sacrifice this comfortable misery I know and go into the complete unknown. That's just, and I think it's harder too. The older you get, the more obviously it's like, you don't want to be the guy at the office that's like 5 years from retirement that you're now like going to start over at a new company or new job or new career, whatever it is, right? Like, that kind of panic and fear is crazy. So Jim has always done and always did how he lived his life. Again, like, I think honestly, he's from 13 on, like, the guy was always just on an adventure, basically a nonstop Goonie adventure. It was awesome.
Yeah.
So for him, he's as natural as a fish swimming in water. For other people, we get trained and conditioned and told to do this and not follow that dream because it's not going to make you any money. And some of that's right.
How are you going to pay for health insurance?
Luxury. I don't know how Jim paid for health insurance even.
Well, he didn't. That's
what
the GoFundMe, which will be in the link. Thank you for bringing that up, Bub. But yeah, they're still needing to pay his medical bills. The big thing is he never took from the endowment that was started to keep the temple running after he had passed. So none of that money was used, from what I understand, to pay for any of Jim's medical bills. And I know he was battling cancer for a while, since back in 2022, I believe, is when he was diagnosed. So we checked.
My point was just more of that. You can do what you want. Yeah. Like, again, you might be a starving artist. Like, Jim wasn't starving ever. He wasn't going hungry. I never saw him.
No.
You know what I mean? he probably didn't have a car to get himself back and forth from time to
His
time
little
or enough
pickup
money
truck,
to go,
baby.
but it didn't matter. And
Yeah.
you know, he really was on that wavelength where like it just the universe provided
Yeah.
anything, everything and you know what
He
he
was a
needed. I think
monk. He was a monk of.
kind of like a modern age bohemian monk.
He calls himself a hermit, and he's like,
I would say,
yeah.
but I would say like a Bilbo Baggins, but like a little bit more like, you know, I don't know. I don't even know how to express.
He's one of a
Yeah,
kind. How
that's
about
outside
that?
there.
It's
That's
so
just
difficult to.
unique hangout spot.
Yeah. And the whole backyard from the house going backwards, there's these garages full of books. So he
Yeah,
didn't his library
and I think
was
he had like storage units
enormous.
too.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he had. I don't think this was all of his stuff.
Yeah.
That's wild. Just a jawbone, huh? I seen you man pull off a man's jawbone. I seen it. Yeah, all the different busts and statues were really cool.
There's your
Yeah, like the
skulls.
skulls. I don't
Yeah.
like that. I'm not a fan of that. Those
Is
are
that the cross?
yeah,
That is the
I think
cross.
so.
Oh
I
boy.
think so.
Tell that story.
You know it, don't you?
Not as well as you.
It looks like
Yeah.
like it.
Ooh, that's
He had a cross. I feel like it was that one.
yeah.
It was, I mean, I don't know, 60s, 50s, whatever era, one of the decades before the 80s, I would say. There was a priest. He was new to the ministry. He got set up and saddled with an older priest as kind of his mentor, preceptor. And the older priest was like, hey, look, we're going over to this house for an exorcism, basically. And this younger priest is like, what? Like, okay. He's like, this is this is not going to be real, whatever. So he's like, they get in the car, they go right there, whatever. He gets that cross, and the older priest, you know, the senior priest tells him, hey, look, don't do anything, but you know, you just hold this and don't look at the child, you know, don't listen, just say a prayer, you know, repeat whatever prayer and hold this thing. And so this guy's like rolling his eyes, like, whatever, we're going to mess this kid up. We're going to give this kid some serious trauma, you know, whatever. Maybe he was a ahead of his time thinker and thought he knew better. And, you know, from what I recall from the story, they enter into the room and this priest was instantly like, knew he was wrong, knew that they were up against a real entity. Like there was something going on. I won't say it's the devil, but a demon, a spirit, an energy that was in this little child, you know, maybe like a little older than 10, but probably less than like, you know, 15, somewhere in that range. But doing the whole thing, like, you know, kind of like speaking in tongues, like spitting out weird, I won't say pea soup color stuff, but, you know, maybe bile. I don't know. But it definitely freaked out the younger priest. He started getting really hot in the room. The senior priest was doing his thing. And while he's holding that cross, he just, you know, he's saying his prayers. And finally, he got to a point he passes out. He's going to go down. It's like the elder gentleman gets him out of the room and puts him out in the hallway, and he goes back in the room and he keeps doing his thing. And I don't remember the timeline of when he finally noticed it or looked at it, but on the back end of that crucifix in the wood is the thumbprint of him where he's holding it. You can like see it. And it's not because of, you know, pressure. It's because of heat. His hand got so hot that it burnt into the wood.
His thumbprint into the back of the wood. Yeah. And then the first time he told me that story, he handed me the cross.
He analyzed it. He had it analyzed too.
And I was like,
it's not
yes.
Just a theory. It's a
like,
real, like, I think he had, like, brought to a lab and looked at.
And it was a heat transfer is what they called it, right? A heat transfer.
Yeah. That's how I always got stories, basically. You know, I would pick some, especially in the house. You pick something up, you look at it, you'd ask about it. What's this? What's that? Man, I never saw some of this stuff, though.
Yeah, I mean,
there's always so
much.
There.
There's so much. It's unreal.
Go back. in that cabinet. I feel like in that cabinet. Can you zoom in on that?
Yeah.
I feel like that cabinet has inside it.
Down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Zoom in more. I think it's sitting there on the upper left if you're looking at the cabinet.
I think that's all I can do, bud.
Oh, you can't zoom in anymore?
Okay. There we go.
Go down. Go down. See it there lying on its side? Up in the cabinet behind the glass.
Okay.
There's that. That's the bloodletting ceremonial tool.
Oh my God, it is.
That's the head. And then there's the bone that's coming out of the head. And then that's shaped into a point, right? And then inside that head is the heart of the first shaman of the tribe. And then the hair of that doll, that face that's on top of this ceremonial tool, is hair from every successive shaman as you get brought into the shamanistic ways, whatever you get to that age. They pull some of your hair out and they pluck it and they stick it to the top of that. But that's a human bone cracked and shaped into like a needle point almost. And they would, cut you somewhere, get you bleeding enough. They would let it run down that. It would go down that bone into the head, rejuvenating the heart of the first shaman, rejuvenating all of the tribe, every other shaman that had successively done the same ritual. So that's reinvigorating the entire tribe and the whole group every time. But that is,
one of the top artifacts that he has, by the way, too.
Watched Back to the Future. It's like, Doc, you don't just go down to the local 7-Eleven and get plutonium. You know what I mean? You don't just pick that up anywhere.
How do you come across the bloodletting ceremonial tool from ancient shaman traditions of
I don't
Papua
think I
New
ever
Guinea?
heard that part. I don't even know if he ever told me that part. He just would always say what it was for, and maybe that was a thing. Sometimes you do the provenance of it, but sometimes it was just the story, I guess, too. But yeah, that's one of the craziest stories there was. Man, you see those pictures of those priests? I feel like those priests might have been one of those guys. Might have been the guy associated with the crucifix.
With the crucifix, yeah.
Yeah, because if that crucifix wasn't the right one you saw, then I think the other one is inside the cabinet, and it's by that priest picture because it's black and it's round.
Okay. Is that it back behind there?
Well.
Is that that's it behind the African right here?
I think so, because I think that might be the priest, because he used to try to associate things together with it. I want to say that because that's, I think, how it led to seeing that ceremonial tool as well that time that I was there.
Right. It's all right there.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
a lot going on here, bud.
Look at all the dust on there. Look at the fingerprints.
He never dusted. He couldn't disturb the artifacts.
Bro.
Think about that. You know how much stuff you'd have to move and then put back to dust anything?
You don't think he could have just had somebody put a spell on his house and one of the ghosts that lived there out of the 4 billion could have just come through with, their powers and just cleaned up every now and then?
Oh, man.
Hey, buddy, you got your wiener hanging out.
That was it for that gallery.
That's a really good collection of photos.
Buried treasures.
Yeah, he covers it all.
Here you go. Searching for the remains of the 1851 jail building during a pause in its demolition yields a unique historical artifact. And then this is what he was working on, guys. When me, Stoner, and Bub went to Jim's during the winter of 2022, I think, when we just rebooted the show. And we're just kind of looking to hang out, chat, inspiration. Stone had never met him. And remember, like, oh, man, he's not home. So we were getting in the car. And all of a sudden, here comes Jim's little pickup truck, comes flying in. All right, here we go. Jim, sweet. So we go and talk to him. He's got a handful of plexiglass, all these art supplies. And what he's been working on is the inside of the house is getting everything documented and the stories documented, and then also photographic evidence and kind of placarding everything. And so I know for the last 3-4 years, he's been really, really dedicating himself to kind of turning the house into, making sure when he's gone that these stories stay with us. I would be really excited to see what comes out of the house and what they're going to do.
But unless he did it in his own way, it's just really sad
He
that
did. He has a
won't get the
whole.
Bowsher experience.
I know, but not everybody was invited in the house. In the house, if you went there to go see the temple, that's one thing, but the house was off limits. It was not open to the public. You had to be invited in there. So we were very, very, very fortunate to be, able to go into Jim's house and see all those artifacts and have him hold them in his hand and tell us those stories. I mean, that is the most important moments, I should say, hours in my 20s and 30s.
You know how fun though it would have been to camp out there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have a fire up on top of the temple and
yep. Beautiful fireplace up there.
And the craziest part is you're literally in Wapakoneta and you can look over the next neighbor's backyard and they got the regular little play school, little tyke swing set.
Yep.
There's the war memorial with all the bullets in the cylinder, like a bird feeder.
Yep.
That's what I thought it was. It's like a giant bird feeder of bullets.
Yeah.
Is what it looks like. I don't know if he subconsciously knew that, but all of that ironwork is probably from local Wapakoneta historic. All the fencing, all the stones.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is what I was inspired for the colors and the YouTube slate that I made, which, by the way, guys,
how do you move all that stuff?
I want to shout out Amanda Fields Maynard, Amanda Fields Maynard. Thank you so much. Her photography is incredible, but the YouTube slate that we used for this episode is one of her photos, and it's pretty awesome because there's an angel right above Jim's head as you kind of walk through the temple. And so much love to Amanda. We appreciate you so much. Go follow her on Instagram. That's Amanda_Fields_fiction, everybody. Just wanted to shout out Amanda real quick for everybody. But that was a big inspiration for the thumbnail that I made was just all that dark red ironwork that's all over the place. And this is for how many? This is just for Ohio, correct?
What?
How many bullets are in this memorial?
That I don't know. That
I
I'm
think
unsure
it's a bullet for every soldier that died in a war from Ohio. I want to say.
That could be. Like I said, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe he would have done one for the entire country, but that'd be a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. I forget what the number was, but there's a whole lot of bullets.
I remember what war it was. It was Vietnam War or
I think it was all of the American wars in America that Ohio soldiers.
Oh, in America?
Yeah, all of the American wars. People from Ohio. Let's see here. We got mastodon bone. Do you ever show you this?
No.
Yeah, it's just wild how many things that, as many times as we've been there. I mean, I want to say, could we have gotten out of there under 6 hours anytime we visited Jim, where we would call ahead, where
We'd
he would
usually
know?
get there at 11 a.m. or we'd get there before lunch or something because we knew we were going to be there at least till 5.
7.
So,
oh my God.
Yeah. Well, you'd be there till 5. You'd leave for the next 2 hours.
Yeah.
So once you said once you said goodbye, you had another 2 hours of stories to walk to your car.
Yep. Oh, right. We would say goodbye and we'd be there another 2 hours.
Get into another one. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was my favorite. Now, again, not on an equivalent, but, an adjacent level, I just signed up for Audible because I've been wanting to get more stories or, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but I kind of feel like I'm hitting a point of I'm hitting recycled information or even books that are mentioned on podcasts, whatever subjects that I'm interested in. I know there's a lot of free ones, what have you. So now I can just pop on books on tape and start listening to stuff like that. So I just listened to Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, which was awesome. I
Yeah.
need to listen to Hunt for the Skinwalker. I'm kind of going down that road right now.
George.
But
Knapp.
just a lot of different stuff. I got a lot of different books on philosophy, psychology, some hoodoo magic, some weird stuff I've never heard of. I don't even know if it, it just has a name to it, right? But
Hoodoo's
I don't
like
know.
a mixture of like African and Haitian and kind
No
of
idea.
New
I
Orleans
wasn't really listening in
voodoo.
the first chapter. I'll have to listen
Yeah.
again. But stuff like that. Again, do I think it'll really work or something? No. Am I really trying? I'm just interested. I just want to hear like what people do, how they did it. I'm trying to get some I want some of the older Native American accounts too, because the one story we had that time about the Havmasives and the flying canoes and stuff, that's a
Yeah.
Native American story from like some
Yeah.
old collection. Sure, I can find that, but I just want to listen to stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
dig through it. But that's basically what it was like going to Jim's house.
Yeah.
It was the greatest thing ever.
I know.
I can't.
Man, I'm gonna miss him so much.
Whoever am I going to talk to that has that much? I'm not joking. I
Yeah.
don't know anybody else that's ever going to rival his amount of stories.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. That's why I'm still like, I don't know how he could have possibly gotten all. Well, I guess he wrote them all down.
He did. And I think
They really need to. He's got to get his journals.
somebody's been audio recording, has been making audio files, and I don't know how that's going to be integrated into these displays that he's been working on.
Yeah.
But if there's
Maybe
like
a guided tour or something.
there's like a
I
catalog
mean, that's
of
all I can imagine is if
Yeah.
you set up or somebody's got to curate it. You can't walk through his house and
what
like
if it's
have that
Jim
set up.
talking, dude? Amazing.
It could
and
be,
you can
but
go click on him telling the story
you
about
really
Howard.
think he sat and spent time doing that though?
He's been, I mean, one of the big reasons I know that we haven't been able to catch up with him, even though I ran into him and showed him the show on YouTube and was like, hey, this is a thing. It's happening. I've been trying, even before the Strange Road, I was trying to, I'd go over there and we would hang out, but to schedule a shoot, he had documentary filmmakers that would meet him. Atlas Obscura did a great piece on Jim. We can link that as well. But there's the guy from Blackfish met Jim, came over to the temple and was just freaked out. He's like, there's too much here. I would not know where to start to create a documentary just about you, let alone everything you have going on in your house and in your backyard.
Right. It's a task.
So, we were
I think
really,
a lot of people kind of said that to him though. I think
Yeah.
that there were, that was kind of a resounding sentiment was, I don't really know what to do with you.
Yeah. Yeah. But I know that's why it was kind of tough for us to really connect. And I had him fired up too to come on the show. It's like, hey man, we'll come pick you up. But I think he was really plugging away on getting all these displays and placards. And I want to say I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think it's going to be pretty cool. And however they keep that place alive and keep his spirit alive.
I hope so.
Love to fully support or draw attention to or, help raise money for or whatever it takes. But I know the property's not going away. Jim has worked really hard on making sure that the temple and everything stays there.
Yeah.
But, the stories are just endless. Like we were talking about the story with Howard Hughes and finding these false bottoms in these canes that were all burned up in a field. And, these guys show up and buy all these canes at an auction. And then the guy follows them out to this property and they're burning all the canes. And
he didn't follow them. He saw them on the side of the road and they were like sitting out there. He's like, do you need help? And they were like, basically like beat it.
That's right.
And then they were out there in that field later, like burning a bunch of stuff. And he was like, they're kind of weird.
Yeah.
So basically thought they were CIA or like, not Men in Black, but some kind of covert outfit from a 3-letter agency. And when he went out there, he found the metal tip of the cane, which is the tip, right? Just that's what you hear on the ground instead of being rubber that had Howard Hughes on it or HH. He suspected because it came from, I don't know if it was an estate auction or something like that or where it came from. But the reason they thought they burnt the canes is because those canes is how Howard Hughes used to pass messages. They would wrap a scroll around it, put the head of the cane back on, and then he'd, somebody'd get it. He'd get the message off it, hand it to him, or give them the cane, switch the cane, whatever. Guy was a paranoid dude, right? I mean, he got really paranoid after
and
that.
he had a guy going out there buying up all these canes.
Yeah,
buying up all these canes.
He left some, who knows? Probably left grocery shopping list on there or something, wasn't it?
Yeah,
but
he was.
It's interesting stuff. I mean, it's just weird stories like that. I don't remember ever really poking or prodding him to be like, tell me this kind of story. Tell me. It was almost like he was like a story DJ and he knew what you needed to hear.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And like, he would just tell you like the craziest stuff or like the most interesting or, just get your mind churning, whatever it was. He had a good way of, stoking that creative fire.
Yeah. 100%. He definitely
He's a beast.
I mean, when I met him and, his big thing was, you don't need those Hollywood executives. If you want to go out and, play with cameras and shoot things, upload it to YouTube, do it yourself. He's like, you do not need these executives.
That's exactly right.
And this was 2007 when he's telling me this. Right. Jim didn't have a computer, but he had a guy that filmed himself doing motocross and put it up on YouTube, and some Hollywood casting agents got a hold of him to come out, and he started has a long career as a stuntman now out in LA. And Jim saw that and said, if you want to do all these things, you can do it yourself, and just follow your passions, find your interest, and just keep going down that road. And don't be concerned about making money. Don't be concerned. Just follow that. And it's going to take you, it's, and he never stopped doing that himself. That's where how you always knew he was legit, not just talking shit, because Jim lived that.
Saying. Yeah, no, he walked the walk.
He's one of the few dudes that walked the walk.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, he's like a Gandalf. Literally like a mystical person. Yeah. I mean, he definitely was a mystical person. Like that is. And again, like his temple, what's it called? The Temple of Tolerance. Well, where does that come from? Well, everybody's tolerated here, meaning you're not allowed to be towards this race or this sex or that sex or whatever, The whole point is we're all here because we're all on the same boat together. We should be able to hang out, have this really cool space, and it's not just for one group or the other group. It's for everybody. So you're going to be nice to everybody here. Hell, man, I remember him saying some big biker dude one time was at his place, right? And I don't know if they had a campfire going on or this or that. He told Jim something like, Jim, I don't like the blacks. And Jim's like, well, that's tough shit, man, because everybody's welcome here. And, Jim wasn't a big guy. Jim's only 5'8", 5'7", little bouncy ball of energy, maybe weighed 140 pounds. So Jim wasn't going to throw down with this guy. Jim was just that confident and knew that he just knew. Right. And he also knew that people knew at the heart of them that was the right thing to do. So no matter what they said, they couldn't really come back at him because he already had them. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And that would be a Jim statement. And I had him. You know what I mean? When you tell stories. Oh, I knew I had him.
Oh, yeah.
Get real exuberant, real fired up.
People come into his aura, they come to the temple, wherever it is, if he meets them when he's out in his travels, he's got a really good way of handing it to you without you knowing that it's coming.
Jedi mind trick.
Exactly. Where he'll get you turned around to where he will be able to, within a conversation, get you to realize that your racist way of thinking is
Oh,
completely ridiculous.
yeah, that's where
And
he talks about buying a car. And he goes, okay, well, if you want to be racist, this is the way I used to tell people all the time, be why that's not a good way of thinking. Say you go to buy an automobile and you go to the lot and they show you this really, really nice, almost brand new car. Nothing wrong with it, but just for some reason, it's a great deal. But there's nothing wrong with it. It really is a good car. If you bought it and drove it off the lot, it's not going to break down on you. It's just a really great car. It just so happens to be yellow, and you hate the color yellow. And so the guy says, okay, well, I'll take you to the next car. And he takes you to the next car. And it's a pretty nice car. It's not as nice as the yellow car, but it's a pretty nice car. Miles are a little higher, cost is a little lower, but it's not as nice. But it's red. And you really don't like red cars. And so you keep going through it. And the only car you like is a blue car. Well, it just so happens that blue car is the biggest piece of shit you ever saw. But
you like blue.
based on this color, you like that blue, and it's not to say if you have a preference for a car color. I'm not trying to be a dick in that way, but it is saying if you kind of don't recognize that, like, being that shallow, especially on a humanistic level, doesn't make sense. Like,
Yeah.
his analogy is saying you're cutting yourself off from people. The spokes of the wheel hold the wheel together, and when you cut yourself away from those other spokes, that wheel falls apart.
Absolutely.
And so he had really good insights and ways of talking about that. One of the funniest things I think, though, ever that cracks me up still was, Jim had a lot of visitors, like you said. He had a lot of really high-profile visitors. He had a lot of scientific visitors. He had a lot of professors out there. He had a lot of interesting people that, probably had their own theories outside of the curriculum they taught, or whatever.
They're very strong, opinionated people.
Right, but they might have their own theories. And so Jim
Yeah.
said there was this, I don't know if he was a physics professor or some mathematician or this or that. And he came out to Jim's house one time and he had been taking all these measurements and he was measuring the temples, measuring this. And Jim's like, he's measuring everything. He's writing it all down. He's got all these numbers. And he goes, finally, I don't know if it was the same year. Later on, the guy finally comes back with all these numbers and data, and he kind of tells Jim what he was doing. And he's like, I was extrapolating, from the size of the temple, the circumference of the base, and from that one to this one, that you laid all this out based on this. And Jim goes, nope. Lawnmower deck. It's like all my paths are this wide to fit the lawnmower deck. And it's all laid out that way so my lawnmower so I can mow the lawn.
Oh,
and this guy was just like deflated. Like he
Right.
had this whole, which, kudos, right? But I don't think Jim went that far with trying to put, Easter eggs and hidden meanings into any of his stuff. I think he was very overt with his stories and the way he talked, because it didn't do any good to sugarcoat it. Right?
That's right.
The stories he told us
Straight
that
shooter.
were really, really messed up. Some of the very horrific racial stories about, I think, God, didn't he said he was in the South and he was trying to understand back in that time because again, he's from Wapakoneta, Ohio. I'm sure the racism was bad, but he went down to the South at one point. And again, I'm not trying to cast any bad negativity anywhere. I'm just saying culture and climate at the time. He ended up at a Klan meeting to kind of understand where that mindset was. And I think he said he left multiple times vomiting because it was so off-putting what was going on. And somebody asked him, like, why did you go there? What were you trying to accomplish? And he's like, I have to understand and know what's going on to be able to fight that. Like, you can't come into this thinking that, if you don't really understand. And so that's what I'm saying. I don't think he ever really sugarcoated the stories. Now, again, he didn't advertise and cast out all the stuff, like some of the heavier ones. But having a relationship with him long enough and having sat with him so many times, after a while, he would, and again, I've probably forgotten 90% of what he ever told me just because I couldn't write it down. But he he did real work, and he really understood people. I mean, the first ones he ever told us, or me personally, was he was teaching writing classes to death row inmates.
Yeah.
That was an interesting soiree.
Well, let's back up because you brought up a good point when you were talking about visiting the people down south and trying, because Jim interviewed some of the last living slaves. He also interviewed some of the last living pilots that were in the World War I pilot
interviewed the
era.
last living Civil War soldier.
Civil War soldier, yes. And that's
At 13.
kind of how he got his start, was
How he got
interviewing the last living slave, because he was, what, 8 or 9 years old, tracking these people down.
Yeah. He's really into Lincoln.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of Lincoln memorabilia and information and stories on him. Yeah.
But he's been a kid. You know, he used to be into baseball, and he'll tell you, he's like, oh, it's Cincinnati Reds. You know, that was my team. And we'd go to games, and I'd listen to him on the radio. And then he just got it in him to where he wanted to start learning about slavery. And he missed a lot in his childhood. You know, a lot of things that he was into, all of a sudden he just wasn't interested anymore. And he's out on the road as a kid. His mom's bringing him to meet these Civil War vets, to meet these World War I pilots that were dropping bombs out of the side of the airplanes. This is before they had bombers. You know, he missed Woodstock because he was interviewing some people. And to him, that was just more important, tracking that story down, than being at Woodstock. You know, it didn't bother him. He never even had a regret.
No, he went and interviewed the guys from the Lollipop Guild.
That's right.
That's what he was doing. He was in Chicago.
He didn't go to Woodstock because he had an opportunity to interview the Lollipop Guild. It was their
At a birthday party.
One of their birthdays.
How I found out about it, I don't know, but somehow his network of weird.
Way before the internet, by the way. Way before the internet.
It's in 69. Right? Is that Woodstock? 69?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
So yeah. And it was like the 85th birthday of one of them or something like that. Crazy. It was maybe not that old, but yeah, he showed up at the house, knocked on the door. That's a great moment. All I want is 20 minutes of your time, and then I'll be out of here. They gave him 20 minutes of time.
Oh, man.
I feel like he told, I don't think this is Jim didn't do this. I think he told another person that same method, right? A guy was asking him, how is it you get to talk to all these people and this and that and whatever? And Jim goes, you know, it just depends. But he goes, you know, some people I literally tell them, do you remember what you were like when you're my age? Because I'm you. And I just need to talk to you just for like 10 minutes. I don't need that much. I don't want anything from you. You don't have to give me an autograph. I just need to talk to you. And that same application was put forward by the guy that asked him that. And he ended up spending the afternoon with Jethro Tull.
Yeah.
The same thing that Jethro Tull. And Jethro Tull's like, cool, we can hang out. So,
oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Jim spanned all kinds of a variety of knowing people and resources. But yeah, he was still very grounded. I mean, I think the one time he said he did a rap poetry session with the Wu-Tang Clan back in the day. That was an interesting one. I was like, you don't know who the Wu-Tang Clan is, do you? He's like, no, not at all. But I did, did a session with him.
I found out that it was the Wu-Tang Clan. I don't really know who they are, or didn't know then. Somehow he became friends with Joan Baez. He was out in Hollywood. Jim used to be a guy that would go to these Hollywood parties and just entertain the hell out of everybody. So he kind of got into where he was being invited to these parties, and he had met Joan Baez, and Joan Baez had gifted him something. So Jim went ahead and Jim had given her something. And then
I remember the story now that you're saying it, but I can't remember the whole story.
Months later, he gets a package. It's from Joan Baez. And he opens it up, and in it is a note that says, Jim, this is a Native American point from, whatever era it was. And when you grab this out of the box, it'll be the very first human hand that has touched this since it was strung up on a bow and shot. And, the 1600s or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And people would just
Yeah.
come in
It's
contact
wild.
with him, and he would have the effect on them. And somebody
What
like
happens?
Joan Baez, people send him things. He just gets these things because he's the only guy that would be able to steward something that strange or
But that's the whole thing.
understand
People
why
don't
it's
want
that
to just do
important.
it so somebody can turn it around and sell it.
Yes.
Jim's like an
Yes.
orphanage for stories and memorabilia. He is. He
Oh,
is.
it's so
He's like,
true.
he just takes it all in and he houses it, and he basically became a self-funded museum.
Yeah.
Roughly speaking, that's what he did. He became his own city installation of culture and art.
Yeah.
That's bonkers. It also shows what draws people in. Again, that
The
place brings
temple is
people in
kind
from
of,
everywhere, but it's so genuine. It's oozing authenticity. You can feel the energy rocking off of it because it's not walking up some, again, big mega corporate attempt at it and high fancy coffee shop on top of it or something, and you can buy this gift shop. It's as close as we can get to something being built back in the day like they were with mounds and structures like that.
Yeah.
Because it happened during our lifetime. It actually happened right now. Like it happened while we were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird. You go to it and that took effort. This is all like man-made, not all hand done. Like
took
there was
20
cranes to move
years.
it took decades.
The amazing story is how we got all that done was you look and a lot of people say Jim reminds me of the guy from the Coral Castle story where they would drop off these big boulders and then the guy would magically erect these.
Well,
in that
Jim
sense,
did it with a crane. He didn't magically do it.
Jim is not at all leading people on that he's the Coral Castle type guy.
No.
Just so you know, guys, this big. What I'm saying is, if you can kind of point in a direction of at least something that's kind of similar, I always kind of bring that up. But Jim would have really just not, I wouldn't say favors, but people that he would have helped out in the past or in passing had helped somebody or talked a business owner into something. But there were guys that had construction equipment that he could call up on, and they would, drop everything and go help Jim. Hey, I had to bring this crane out to essentially construct, because the largest boulders, the boulders are from all 7 continents. Most of them are glacial boulders, very, very ancient stone. And the base of that is one of the earliest dynasties of the Chinese Empire. One of the earliest areas, he had that dirt shipped in from this site in China. And so in the center of the temple is, this kind of sacred dirt, and just collecting all these stones and then eventually erecting them over a 20-year period, which is what you see now with what we call the secret garden area, which kind of leads from the house back to his property, or back to where it opens up, where there's a temple. There's a giant keg of beer. Was a huge keg of beer that they turned into a poker room. Supposedly Babe Ruth played a hand of poker. That building's back there. And you just walk back, you're winding back there. And because you took me through the front area and we hung out at the temple and then eventually went into the house. And that's where he told us tons of stories. But I remember walking through there first and seeing eventually the temple open up. And it's just a unbelievable spot. And really the temple's a magnet for all of these stories, I think. That's why part of it is Jim, of course, but he's also built this thing that's an antenna to bring in the stuff that Jim needs to come across his path.
But again, you work at your craft long enough. I mean, he started young.
Yeah.
He knew what he wanted to do, and that's all he ever did, and he ran straight forward, guns blazing, which cheers on you, because again, it's fantastic. Everything about it.
Absolutely. And if you guys want to check out jimbowsher.com, there's also the templeoftolerance.com. We'll have all those links in the description for you guys. But we had a blast talking about our buddy Jim, our friend. Like I said, it's hard to put into words of what Jim really was to us. Mentor, definitely for sure. But he would always take his time and set aside a day for us to come down and hang out and philosophize, and he would give us advice. He would not talk to you in the sense of tell you what to do. He was really esoteric and with, allegories and how at the end of the day, he would beat your brain into an oblivion with stories and information, but he would always bring it back to, you would walk away knowing what you had to do, or like, I'm going to do this now. There's no holding back. A lot of the stuff that we're doing now, I think Jim really pushed us in the right direction and helped us see that it was possible to go after
the one
something.
thing he always said too was, if you can do something like, I like to play music. I really liked playing music back then. I wasn't really good at writing songs, but I thought maybe if I could write a song or this or that. And so I think I went over there one time and
I brought you over there that time.
Right? He was like, it's pretty good. But you know what a record executive or anybody else is going to ask? Guy Moore. He's like, just don't stop. Just keep writing. Don't ever stop. He's like, that's the whole thing. It's like, you just can't stop. If you love doing it or this is that, you don't ever stop. That's the only thing that stops you is you stopping. So it's not about can you do it. It's, keep doing it, get better at it, better at it. So keep telling stories even. Was he great at telling stories always? Probably not. Probably took, him and Walter from the same family, right? Not that Walt's not a storyteller, but they obviously have a different, speed and delivery. And so you can tell that Jim got really good at talking to people, got really good at reading people, got really good at just people and interacting with them to a point of, like almost modern day shamanism, man. Like anybody that saw his presentations would just come out, I'm sure, and be like, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Unless you just don't have a pulse for the odd or, interesting, and you just want to watch Home Shopping Network sell you, I don't know, the next Dustbuster, then maybe he's not your guy. I see that not lining up.
Yeah.
But if you have any interest, he can hit on one of those. He's like the King Gizzard of storytellers. Might not enjoy all the stories. He's got something that will catch your fancy. I promise you.
He's never told us a story that we didn't love, I don't think. Has there ever been a story where you're just... I can't think of one time where you weren't completely engaged in what he was saying.
No.
That's I don't think thing. Ever.
There was never a story where if I could have TiVo'd him and fast forwarded, I would have never done it. If anything, I would have rewound and paused, and every story was just like, it's the best story I've ever heard. Yeah. And then he'd do it again, and he'd do it again. And you finally, just by the end of the day, were beat to submission because it was just like, how? Again, the story of Woodstock, do you know how arbitrary that was? And do you know how he brought that up? He dug Woodstock. Jim went to Woodstock, New York, and plotted out grids and dug down like a foot or 12 inches or whatever it was, and did all these grid digs and just dug for stuff. And he found buttons and pins and all kinds of memorabilia and ticket stubs and coins and whatever. And so he's telling his buddy about that. He was going, I dug Woodstock. And the guy was like, oh, yeah. Well, you remember Woodstock, don't you, Jim? And Jim goes, no, I don't. Like, I didn't go to Woodstock. And the guy's like, well, you didn't go to Woodstock? What do you mean? Like, that was our time. That was our era. And Jim's like, I didn't go. And the guy's like, you didn't go to Woodstock. Tell me where you were. And Jim's like, I was in Chicago interviewing 3 smaller people, 3, back in non-PC era time, midgets or little people. And this guy was just floored. And he was like, why would you spend your time doing that? And that's when he told him, it was the original Lollipop Guild. But that's how a story would start, would be, I was digging Woodstock. And then that led to talking about the time that I couldn't go to Woodstock. And then that led to me talking about the Lollipop Guild. You can understand, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I can understand because my stories usually end up like I went to Kroger to get a 12-pack of soda, and I ended up with a giant-sized bag of pizza rolls as well, and a family-sized box of Gushers. So no, my stories don't end up with me, hundreds of miles away from home on a whim and a hope and a prayer that I can sell my door-to-door salesmanship of journalism. I mean, it's just
Unbelievable.
I mean, yeah. I mean, Jim is Jim, and there is no one else I've ever met like him.
There'll never be another. There could never be another. Ending on
if
that
there's
note,
another one, I think if there's another one, they were just born, because I don't think they could have the Earth's realm
he
at the same time.
reincarnated.
So,
Yeah.
like the Dalai Lama being reborn, maybe the next Jim Bowsher is out there right now and doing good things. Hopefully.
Right.
I hope he inspired
no doubt.
a lot of people to pass it on and pay it forward.
And he did. There was a lot of really cool messages on his digital obituary. There was a private ceremony held for Jim, for his brother and his wife, and his wishes that there was no public ceremony or a get together memorial at the temple, which is just
It's not
like
his thing.
Jim. This is
not
not about
It's
me.
not about him.
It's never been about him.
No.
Ego was there was no ego involved when it came. It was just the preservation of the stories, the folk art, the integrity of the temple and what it represented is the temple of tolerance and tolerance towards all human beings, all races. We're all he could bring everybody together with that place. And he did it, man. He dreamed it, he envisioned it, and he did it. But brother, we're going to miss you. I already know that he's been with me since his passing. I felt definitely his being, felt his guidance in certain situations. So sure am going to miss him. It's been this has really, really helped kind of process, because there's a lot going on when we found out about Jim's passing.
Yeah.
And we've kind of, in our own way, have gotten there. But I think doing this episode, telling stories about our buddy Jim, this has been awesome.
Yeah. 2024 is a wild year.
Yeah, it's been a really, really dinger.
It's up to be a wild one.
But guys, go check out jimbowsher.com. Go check out the templeoftolerance.com. Make sure you
visit
follow.
it sometime.
Go visit the Temple of Tolerance. We can bring that up. Right here is the address. That
just
is
Google Maps, the Temple of Tolerance.
Yep, Google Maps, Temple of Tolerance. And it is, address
Ohio.
is 203 South Wood Street, Wapakoneta, Ohio, 45895. Fantastic.
Check it out.
Go check it out, guys. Again, thank you so much for all your patience. We're back, baby. This has been a fun one. What better way to come back and celebrate the life of our friend, Jim Bowsher. Take care, everybody. Peace. We're out of here.